All right, MMA history going down with UFC 229, one of the biggest fights that the UFC has ever put on. And see, they say that all the time, and I'm always saying, you're always saying that. This, pay-per-view wise, the biggest fight they ever put on. Khabib Nurmagomedov taking on Conor McGregor for the lightweight championship. Khabib was the champion. Conor was no longer the champion. It was Khabib. And they were going to finally meet up after all kinds of talk, things that had gone on. It was a crazy time. There was some really nasty stuff being put out, but you were kind of close to it. Tell me what was going on with what you were seeing with Khabib.
Well, you have to remember, it didn't really get escalated a whole lot up until the bus incident. And the bus incident took it to another level. Habib is just somebody
that was
who just
back in UFC 223.
And so with Habib, he doesn't pay attention. He'll send some chatter out like, yeah, let me fight your chicken. Let me fight your I'll smash him, squash him, all of these things, which ultimately ended up happening. But it just really came down to nothing was really as prevalent that catapulted this fight into the next level until that bus incident. And that really made this thing went worldwide from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Conor flew himself over on a private jet with some friends. They came in, attacked the bus. We all remember what happened. Some fighters were injured. Ray Borg, I believe, had some glass in his eye. Rose had got some cuts. I believe it was Rose Namajunas. Somebody else, I think, also got some cuts. It was the whole send location became now it's a GIF. It's also a meme. It's, send me your location. Send location is it's all around, and it's all stems from that night. And that really is what catapulted this thing into the next level and the next atmosphere of pay-per-views. 2.5 million pay-per-view buys. No one's gotten close to that. And it's going to be, I don't know if that record, I don't think it's going to ever be broken again in the MMA world. Maybe potentially, but it's going to be a long time, especially the way that the pay-per-views are trending. They're not doing well. I mean, it's very rare to get anything that's, 600,000, above 500 to 700,000 at the max these days. This did 2.5 million. That's insane. And so me being close to this, it wasn't really relevant up until that bus incident. And I was kind of already on my way out of the fighting and not being at AK as much. And Khabib and I were still training, still, doing our thing. But it really just came down to he'd never let guys like Conor McGregor get under his skin. And you saw that in the pressers all leading up to it. He just smiled and looked at him. He understood, don't touch me, say what you're going to say, because in that cage is where the talking's going to be done. And there will be no talking. It'll be my fist talking to you. The only person that was really talking in that was Khabib. And Khabib was very much, say something now, talk now. And, what do you have to say? And it all came to a head. And that was the biggest thing, is ultimately knowing you can say whatever you want. Khabib didn't care. You can say whatever. Obviously he cared, but he understood once that cage door closes, none of these guys can save you. No one.
No.
And at the end of the day, no one saved Conor McGregor. No one. And there was not a thing that he could do.
Not true. Herb Dean did.
This is very true. True. That's what he gets paid the big bucks for.
That's right. The one thing looking back on this is I do remember all the hype, and it did all stem from the incident that when Khabib won at 223, it ended up being against Al Iaquinta, which was one of several last minute opponent changes and everything. Al took the fight. He was supposed to fight somebody else. He made that championship weight for his fight. He was an easy push up into it, and Khabib ended up winning the title with that fight. But it was that whole bus incident. You got to take a look, and a lot of people were upset with the UFC over using that tape that they had, because there was tape of it based upon, it was at the Barclays Center, and they had cameras going. Conor did throw a hand truck at the bus. It broke the window. There was some bad things that happened with it, but it was the build up for 229. The UFC decided to use all of that video, which I understand why they did it. And I don't think it's a horrible thing, but it became minor, in my opinion, compared to some of the statements that Conor was making, because he crossed the line. There's a line in the sand that, Josh, you and I are going to fight. You can say whatever you want about me. I don't care. I'm going to say whatever I want about you. You shouldn't care. Okay. But it should never get to the point where you bring in family, you bring in religion. And that basically started to happen in the buildup for this fight. There was things said that you just went and said, you're crossing the line. Stop. And Khabib, being the guy that he is, really he played it off very well. He played it cool because, as you were saying, when I get in the cage, we're going to see who's going to talk. And he did throughout that fight. What are you going to say now? Because there was a lot of things going on. But I want to go to that first round and the very first exchange that occurred between Khabib and Conor was more of a grappling exchange than it was striking. And you got to admit, when you take a look at this, and this is where you're always going to resort back to who you are and your training of what you do, because it was clear that Conor really worked on his grappling. He worked on that takedown defense. And if you look back and you watch Khabib getting into his legs and working for that takedown, Conor did an outstanding job of defending all the way up to the point where he could not resist and he started to go into striking. And as soon as he started trying to strike from that position on the ground, Khabib just caught those moments and ended up moving himself to a better position to the point where now he was on top. Now he was pressing Conor against the cage, and now all the things were in Khabib's favor. He was starting to be the same fighter we had watched multiple times with everyone else, the fighter that we expected to see if we were going to see him get that takedown, and the fighter that Conor said was never going to be able to, use that skill set against him. As soon as Conor went for the strikes while on the ground, the whole thing changed. I always look back and wonder, if he had just stayed with defending, how much more work would it have been for Khabib to actually, break that takedown into a position where he was able to do something with? Could Conor have possibly gotten out of it? We'll never know, but it was a great display by Conor of athleticism and of being able to stuff a lot of the things that Khabib was doing for quite a while, until he got into, I gotta try to strike and hurt him. And that's when things started to go downhill for Conor McGregor.
I'm going to disagree with you. And the reason why
I
disagree with you, I thought he did an outstanding job of defending the takedown. I agree with that. I also agree with the fact that he lost that positioning based on the fact that he started to strike. I do agree with that. Where I'm going to disagree with you on is that his ability to stop that takedown was fresh. As this fight would go on, it would become easier and easier. And even if he did, and we've seen countless times of Khabib losing a takedown or not getting a takedown in the very first try, but being relentless and just pressuring and grinding, he is somebody who is so mentally strong. He never, ever lets anything distract him from what his goal is. His goal is to get that takedown. His goal is to get on top of you and smash your face in. That is his job. That is his goal. And he does that job better than anybody in the world. He was at that time doing that better than anyone in the world. He is so dialed in and focused. And for that fight specifically, was dialed in on what his goal was. There was not one thing that was going to distract him from achieving that goal. And that goal was to get the takedown. And even if he didn't get that one, he was going to get the next one. And he would get the next one. And I've said this before, and I'll continue to say this. The sport now has come along so far that everyone knows how to stop the first takedown. It's the second and the third one they don't know how to stop. And Khabib and Islam and the Dagestan wrestlers, they have that style. And American wrestlers as well. They have that style now of learning how to chain wrestle it together. It's just that the Dagestans and the Sambo style. They chain it together in a different way that American wrestlers are not used to. It's not the single leg to the flare to the body lock. This is double leg to the body lock, lift, scoop, take you down, can't get it, shrug, go to the back, then foot sweep, and then foot, and then it's inside trip. They mix it up, hike the leg up. American wrestlers in MMA, the American style of wrestling is not chain it together that well. It's like almost like as if they're afraid to get hit in the transitions, so they don't do it as well. They haven't been doing Sambo where they're getting punched and still doing the takedowns for 250 fights like Khabib has already before he had fought Conor. Khabib understood that, look, maybe I won't get it the first time. I'll get it the second. He understood that Conor, his main focus was to stuff takedowns, to stay moving, try to intimidate him. Do you remember how that fight started? The bell rings.
Yeah. Conor walks out.
Didn't run. He walked out. He just walked out with his hands down, thinking that Khabib was going to be intimidated by him. There's not a thing I've seen him square up with some other guys at 185 pounds, 200 pounds, because they went a little too hard, and he was just trying to work with them. And so he smashed them, took them down, pressed them to the fence, and smashed them. Like, oh, you want to go hard, huh? Okay, I'll show you what hard is. Go hard. And these guys were 185, fought at 185, but walked around 200. Didn't care. There wasn't a thing that Conor was going to do outside of catching him on the transition. But the way that Khabib sets up his stuff to lower his level and penetrate and chains the wrestling together, drive you to the fence, it was inevitable that he was eventually going to get these takedowns. And Conor, I agree, just could not resist the temptation to punch him.
Yep.
I gotta hit you. I gotta show you I have power. I want you to fear me. That doesn't work, man. Not with somebody who is as focused after all the shit that you talked. He was so laser focused on what his goal was to just destroy you, smash you, talk to you, and make you pay for everything you did and everything you said about his wife, about his family, about his father, about his mother, about his country, about Dagestan, about the people he cared about. He was in there on a mission, and there wasn't a damn thing that Conor was going to be able to do that night to stop him.
Yeah, it was an impressive, because especially after that takedown occurred, people are going to look and say, well, Conor won the third round. Khabib took that third round off. It was the second round that was the interesting round. If you're going to go back and look at that fight, it obviously ended in the fourth round. But the second round of that fight was the round that Khabib actually put Conor down on his butt for a second, well, at least down to a hand, and no one expected, if anyone expected a knockdown in the fight, they were thinking Conor was going to be the one to land that knockdown. Khabib was the one that was able to land the knockdown, but it was not only just that knockdown, it was the next takedown off of it. And what he was able to do with controlling the position and just mauling Conor. Conor was at that point still had some gas. He still was in the fight as far as he was in shape. He was ready to go, and he was burning that gas, trying to stop everything that Khabib was doing. And he was burning it at a rate that he could not recover from. And you could see that it was taking a toll. Just the way that he moved after getting up at the end of that round and walking back to his corner, you saw a difference in body language from the guy that walked in that cage to the guy that was now walking back to his corner. There was a complete difference in the way he carried himself. Part of that is he's breathing hard, but there was an absolute acknowledgement of, oh shit, I can't stop what he's doing.
When a fighter gets up and says it was just business, there are things in life, John. There's just things in life that are not business. And when you started this clip, you said it went to the family. It went to beyond personal.
Across the line.
It crossed the line. What there's fighters out there that we know talk a lot of trash. I'll give you one right now is Danny Sabatello.
I love
But everything I love Danny Sabatello, but Danny Sabatello's made it very clear. My issue is with the fighter. I have nothing to say about your religion. I have nothing to say about your family, your wife, your kids. Off limits. I have a lot of respect for that, because ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to step in there and fight each other, and you're going to find out who's the better fighter.
Yep.
In this scenario, it went on beyond. It went, and that changed the way that Khabib fights, the way he fought that fight that night. And people want to say, I think this was considered to be the only round that he lost was round 3. And he didn't really lose it. It was a close round, and he took it off from the exhaustion, is what you basically is like what I was saying. When fighters are saying, when he got up and said it was just business, that let me know that he was already kind of mentally broken. He realized that this is going to continue to happen. He realized that sure, I've got a puncher's chance because I have power and I am Conor McGregor. That's kind of, I think, what his mindset was. But in reality, this was not going to end. This wasn't going to stop. Khabib was not going to stop until this man was finished. Khabib was mad at the fact that he tapped. Like, go to sleep like a man. Like that's, go to sleep like the guy that you say you are. Go to sleep like you say you're going to fight to the death. You're this and that. No, you're not. You're a tapper.
This goes back to Muhammad Ali. Look at Muhammad Ali against Joe Frazier, especially in that third fight, the Thrilla in Manila, where he had a rubber gorilla. He says, "Come on, gorilla, we in Manila," and he's hitting it and things like that. And a lot of people took offense to what Ali was saying about another black man at the time, calling him a gorilla and things like that. And they took offense to it. A lot of people took offense to what Conor McGregor was saying, and Khabib being one of those. But you look at it and you go, again, when watching Khabib and saying possibly the most dominant fighter I've ever seen in that cage, and through, at least with 2 of those rounds, really putting it on. The second round and the 4th round, just an incredible display of what he could do with a really good fighter. And then even after the 4th round, at the end of that fight, he went after Dylan Dennis and the corner for Conor McGregor going over the fence. But that's another story. It was a huge fight. It was a great win for Khabib Nurmagomedov, and I hope you guys enjoyed.